You care, right? You proved that by having my fucking back.
Tariq. This ain't my war. Plus, in New York, I'm already dead.
Before season 3 of Ghost, I've long believed that Force and Ghost's crossover was something that was bound to happen. Although I did think at the ending of season 1 of Force, we may have seen it in the form of law enforcement. For example, I would love to have seen the look on Cooper Sax's face if he ever found out Tommy was alive, because he did witness Tommy being supposedly burned to death. So I would love to have seen a scenario where these pictures somehow landed on Cooper Sax's desk, or at least with Blanca Rodriguez, and then Sax finding out Tommy was alive and potentially crossing over to Chicago, where he'd then eventually meet his fate at the hands of Tommy. Even though Sax has been on thin ice for a number of years, I would really have loved to seen him survive just one more season, crossing over to Chicago and coming face to face with an old nemesis. Another way I would love to have seen Sax meet his fate would have been Tommy coming back to New York to tie up loose ends with Tasha, but maybe bumping into Sax and cancelling Christmas, just like he wanted to do back in season 6. I do think it would have been a more fitting end to a character who was a mainstay for 9 seasons of Power, and I do think his death could have hit that much harder had it been at the hands of someone like Tommy or Tariq St Patrick, especially considering the St Patricks have been a thorn for him for 9 years of Power. But having said that, did we expect Ghost and Force's crossover? Most definitely. Did we expect them to do it in the way they did so soon in season 3? Definitely not. It was a huge surprise to see Tommy come back and almost cancel Christmas on Tasha, and I do think Tommy coming back did serve a few purposes. So in the rest of this video, we're going to be breaking down the crossover in a bit more detail, having a look at what's next for this relationship, not just between Tommy, Tasha and Tariq, but Tommy's extended family with JP and D-Mac, as well as Kate Egan, who seemed like she was packing up to move to Chicago. And something else which I think could potentially play a part in the future is Davis McLean knowing Tommy's alive, so that is a key detail we're going to get to later on. Now, what brought Tommy back to New York was something I don't think anybody could have foreshadowed. Cooper Sax knew if he were to ever to die, Tariq St Patrick would probably be involved, or at least he would blame Tariq because of what he's done in the past and who he is. So Sax wanted to cause as much chaos as possible from beyond his grave. Leaking Tasha's location to Monet and 2-Bit was done to fuck with Tariq and the remaining St Patricks. But it wasn't Monet or 2-Bit who gave Tommy the location, it was Diana, and I do expect her to pay the price at some stage. But Tommy coming back did serve a few purposes. He cleared up this feud with Tasha, which now gives us some freedom to move around New York, help Tariq and be able to live a life knowing Tommy's not going to be lurking around the corner ready to cancel Christmas. But he also came back to protect Tariq and the St Patricks in episode 10.
You ain't got no plan for war. You need to rethink your beef with her.
You think I can't handle a fucking war by myself, Uncle Tommy?
I know you can't ride one out from the back of a fucking college classroom.
Tariq needed to hear exactly this, otherwise he would have done something stupid in retaliation without thinking first. But this relationship between the two really is complex. Tommy's been there for his nephew, but continuous lies about his whereabouts, giving Dre the heads up when the hitters were coming his way, stealing product from Tommy's warehouse and killing Ghost, broke their relationship to the point where Tommy no longer considered Tariq family, and who could blame him?
You just as low down and grimy as your old man.
Tommy values loyalty and family above everything, and if you betray him, it's game over. That's the one thing Tommy hates the most, especially because Ghost always used to make these moves behind Tommy's back without giving him the full picture. And that goes back to Tommy telling Tariq he's done something very similar to his father, trying to ride out between two worlds. But by ending this feud with Tasha and Tariq, they've taken one step in the right direction in mending this relationship. Although not to the point where he'd step in and help Tariq fight this war with Nomar and the Tejadas. He said that's all down to Tariq, this is his war. This was another reason why Tommy was here, to give some words of wisdom to Tariq. He's either a civilian or a gangster, he needs to rethink his strategy, he needs allies, and he can't fight a war from the back of a college classroom. Now, as we see Tommy driving back to Chicago, could we see him coming back to Ghost and help Tariq? Even though he told him he's dead in New York and this is his war, I definitely think so. We've seen Tommy crossing over to Ghost twice now, one at the end of season 1 and also at the end of season 3. Tommy's also a character who's always been there for his family, and Joseph Sikora said it best in one of his Instagram live Q&As over a year ago. At some point, Tariq will need Uncle Tommy's help.
Is Tariq going to appear on my show? I can't tell you that, but you know that he's going to definitely need Uncle Tommy's help at some point. I don't know if Tasha will be because she's in witness protection, but she might. You never know who's going to pop up. What's up, Albania?
So despite what Tommy said about this not being his war, there are a few reasons which would leave him no choice but to get involved, one of them being a death of a St. Patrick. If this war with the Tejadas, Nomar and Effie results in one of the death of Tasha, Yasmin or Grandma Estelle, or they find themselves kidnapped or held hostage, or in a really life-threatening situation, then I can see Tariq making the call to Uncle Tommy and telling him, I can't do this without you, I need you. And we all know what Tommy Egan's like. I think he'd drop whatever's happening in Chicago, tell Diamond to hold it down and make that trip to New York, get shit done, cancel Christmas on whoever's fucking with the St. Patricks, and then go back to Chicago. So do I think we've seen the end of Tommy on Power Book 2 Ghost? You can never say never in the Power universe. They've done it twice already, and that's certainly one way you could see him return. The death of a St. Patrick, or to help Tariq avenge the death of Tasha, Yasmin, or Grandma Estelle. Now at this moment in time, Tommy's on his way back to Chicago. So where does that leave Tasha and Tariq? We all know Tariq is fighting this war, and if he needs Tasha, she's gonna be there for him. And I've already been through the theory of how Tasha could help him rebuild his organization. But could Tasha even cross over to Chicago? After the ending of season 3 is definitely on the table, and I'm going to run through a few scenarios and theories around how and why it would make logical sense for either Tasha or Tariq to go over to Chicago. So let's start with family. We've already been through how family really is important to someone like Tommy and even Tariq St. Patrick. As I mentioned before, one way Tommy could come back to New York is to help his family if they're in danger. But his loyalty now extends beyond his relationship with the St. Patricks because he does have a new family to protect in JP, D-Mac, and soon to be K. Egan. Tommy's a character who's always got this desire to protect and provide for loved ones, and we saw how proud he was when he told Tasha about his actual nephew D-Mac. A family reunion with JP, D-Mac, Tasha, Tommy is something I would love to see. Although I'm sure Tommy would be in two minds considering he knows who Tariq is and how he wants to shield D-Mac from the dangers of the street life. He once told D-Mac he knew someone just like him, someone who was smart, always with his head in his books, and he was talking about Ghost. But Tommy's family coming together, who knows? But that brings me on to my next point of Tasha being the one to cross over to Chicago. We've looked at the perspective of Tommy coming to New York and helping Tariq if Tasha finds herself in danger or killed, or Yasmin or Grandma Estelle. But let's flip the script. What if it's Tommy who's the one who needs assistance instead? No doubt, Tommy's grown as the seasons have gone on, and he's learned not just from Ghost, but people like Kanan, Milan, Jason Michich, and a few others. But sometimes the best in the drug game even need a bit of assistance, or just a different mind to tell them from right from wrong, or even pick them up when they have their back against the wall. So let's take it down memory lane, because Tasha was there when Tommy found himself in turmoil during the whole Felipe Lobos Ghost situation. She was also there to help mentor Holly, and then cook the books at Lakeisha's salon by cleaning Tommy's cash. She also saved him by killing Lakeisha because she did agree to turn. Whether she would have not have snitched is a different question entirely, but Tasha did what needed to be done. So I've made it pretty clear in recent times that although Tasha wasn't the mastermind behind Ghost's operation, she definitely played a part in assisting Ghost and Tommy. So we know Tariq's need to rebuild his organization, but what about Tommy? He finds himself in a very similar situation as well, and we all know Tasha's been there for him a number of times. So could we see a crossover scenario where Tasha crosses over to Chicago to maybe assist Tommy? So far we've spoken about Tommy going back to New York, Tasha crossing over to Chicago, but what about Tariq and potentially even Brayden crossing into Chicago? For Tariq and Brayden to cross over to Chicago, there needs to be a reason, an incentive for them to go to Chicago, and at this moment in time, even though Tariq and Brayden do have their backs against the wall, they still have each other and they have Tasha as well as Obi as an ally, potentially even Obi's family who are due to come over on green cards. So Tariq still finds him in a position where he can still regroup. I'm sure he'll definitely find a way as he always does, so I don't think there's a reason for him to go over to Chicago just yet. But this is Power, and Ghost moves at a very quick pace, and so if they wanted to find a reason for Tariq to cross over to Chicago with maybe even Brayden, they can definitely find one. Now if they do, how could Tariq and Brayden benefit from being in Chicago? Let's look at it this way. They'd be under the guidance of one of the most notorious drug lords in Tommy Egan. They'd also learn a lot from being under someone like Diamond, who's also an old head who fought many street wars. One we know of from a conversation in Force is with the Flynns. He's also a boxing champion, and Tariq still does need to learn to throw his hands. So Tariq and Brayden being under the guidance of Diamond and Tommy for an episode or two really would do them a world of good. They definitely learn a lot. But as I mentioned before, first they need to find out Tommy's in Chicago, and then there needs to be a valid reason for them to go over to Chicago, and at this moment in time I can't find one. But that's not to say they don't answer that in season 2 of Force, so it's just a waiting game to see if that happens, because we certainly can't rule it out. Now this next point I think is a very interesting one, because one person who knows Tommy's alive and was back in New York is Davis McLean.
When your lawyer and your homicidal white uncle both tell you not to start a war, you should listen.
So he's someone who's aware about Tariq's uncle, and did they have Davis mention this for a reason, or was it just to warn Tariq? Just think about the connections Davis has. He has a way of being able to locate people, like Pinky did with Lucas Weston. So could we see Tariq asking Davis to find out where Uncle Tommy is? I always say expect the unexpected when it comes to Power, and the crossover is one which they could spin in so many different ways. But one person who I definitely think is heading over to Chicago is K. Egan, who was packing up her house before Tariq came storming in. She also previously said more secrets will be revealed in terms of Tommy's backstory in season 2. But could this in turn reveal a little bit more about James St Patrick? You think about what they've revealed about Tommy in Force so far, but where does Ghost tie into it? Because he did move in with Tommy and Kate when his pops was killed. So could learning more secrets about Tommy uncover more secrets about Ghost, which in turn brings Tommy and Tariq to have another conversation about Ghost? They definitely can play with his backstory, which for the best part still remains a mystery. So a crossover doesn't necessarily have to do with Tasha and Tariq directly coming to Chicago. We could even learn more about Ghost by learning more about Tommy's past. Just something to think about from a different perspective on secrets and backstories. But drop all your thoughts down below in the comment section. Do you guys think Tariq and Brayden could benefit from going over to Chicago? Could we see Tasha in Force? Or could Tommy make a return to Ghost to help Tariq fight this war if Tasha or Tariq find themselves in trouble? Drop all your thoughts down below in the comment section, and as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.